river flooding over the next few days. Look at this. Tampa, Sarasota, the rivers to the east of that still have some major flooding as well. This is the St. Johns River into Lake Harney, Florida. Forecast crest of 10.7 feet. That's on October 3rd. This is the forecast. So this is all the way over here. The record is 11 feet. So we're just below that. The latest is 9 feet. But remember, it takes a lot of time for all that water and all that rain to start funneling into the rivers, which is why sometimes there's a little bit of a delayed effect for when the river rises. It takes time for that water to get there. This is Little Wekiva River in Altamont Springs, crested at 31 feet on September 9th. Here's the good news there, though. You can see the latest starting to go down just a bit. We're at 30.68. The previous record, though, was 29.74 feet. So we did break that record there. But still, incredible amounts of rain coming out from the sky. And Ian, they're going into the roads and they're going into the rivers.
Kelly, thank you. We are continuing to track Ian. More impacts to be felt. This as the storm moves across the Atlantic. Another landfall expected in the South Carolinas. We're expecting impacts up into the Appalachians. Stay with us. Fox Weather will be right back.
Al, did you make that call?
Honey, we already have Medicare. Why do I need to call?
Alan, the Feldman said we may be able to get additional benefits with a Medicare Advantage plan right here in our zip code with $0 monthly premiums.
Honey, what do you mean additional benefits? We turned 65, we got Medicare. That's all there is to it, right?
I'm talking about Medicare Part C, commonly called Medicare Advantage. We have traditional Medicare, which is only Medicare Parts A and B, but not Part C.
Wait. So not everyone on Medicare is a Part C plan?
No, that's why we need to call, because there may be plans available with additional benefits that aren't covered under Medicare Parts A and B. We don't have a Medicare Part C plan which covers everything in Part A and Part B plus extra benefits in Medicare Part C.
What kind of extra benefits?
There are great plans that may be available with extra benefits like dental, vision, and hearing.
Did you say dental?
Yes, dental. Medicare Part C plans could include dental benefits that help cover routine dental exams and teeth cleanings, plus dental x-rays, fillings, gum disease treatment, and dentures.
We need that. I'm calling.
If you don't have a Medicare Part C plan, call now because there may be plans with additional benefits available that are simply not covered under Medicare Parts A and B, like routine dental coverage. If you're on Medicare, you can call even if you called last year. We will check to see if there is a Part C plan available in your area with additional benefits. You don't get a plan with additional benefits automatically. If you're losing coverage, moving, or new to Medicare, call to speak with a licensed insurance agent. Remember, you don't get Medicare Part C benefits automatically. Call now for your free 2022 no-obligation Medicare benefits review. Call 800-748-1536. 800-748-1536.
Welcome back to Fox Weather. We do have some new video into Fox Weather. We're going to show you that from St. Johns County, including St. Augustine, where there is more flooding. We've seen that heavy rain through the overnight period across the I-4 corridor. There it is. You can see on the left side of your screen and over to the right side, water completely across that roadway. This was why St. Augustine had that evacuation order in place. Significant street flooding, a lot of these communities with high water. And yes, that was a combination of both the surge and still some of the rain that's been spreading up and down the I-95 corridor. Thankfully, the core of what is now tropical stormy and a high-end tropical storm, that's back out into the open waters of the Atlantic. The problem is that it has its energy source back, which is some warmer waters of the Gulf Stream. It can tap into this even though the atmospheric conditions, when we're talking about wind shear, some drier air that's wrapped into the system, you don't see a whole lot of activity on the eastern side of this. It will be gathering more of a hybrid look as it approaches its next landfall. That's expected to be up in South Carolina. What does it mean in terms of impacts? Not a whole lot, because this will have hurricane strength, likely back up to a Category 1 before it makes landfall. It's that energy source off the Atlantic that will allow this system to battle up what would otherwise be hostile atmospheric conditions. There is still a flash flood warning. You just saw some of that video in the St. Augustine area, St. Johns County. It's a considerable threat, and that runs until 3:15, so another 30 minutes or so. Thankfully, The heaviest of the rain, as I mentioned, is off to the east now. That being said, up and down the I-95 corridor, which is right here, you can see more light to moderate rain still falling in a place that's gotten soaked already, clearly. Here's the latest on Tropical Storm Ian. Max winds still at 70 miles per hour. Its pressure holding steady at 987 millibars. Its motion north-northeast at 9 miles per hour. That's what's taking it towards South Carolina, where we're expecting another landfall. This would be a second U.S. landfall as a hurricane again in South Carolina tomorrow afternoon, with winds somewhere in the 75 to 80 mile per hour range for maximum sustained winds. The issue is this forecast path that hooks into the Appalachians, bringing with it some of that tropical moisture. The possibility that some of these areas could see 4 to as much as 8 inches of rain in places with mountainous terrain. That's where we could see a significant flash flooding threat. Kelly?
Ian, we're going to head over to Fort Myers where Robert Ray is live. Robert, we are with you during the thick of it yesterday. We're so happy to see that you are safe. But now that the weather has calmed and it's easier to see, what kind of damage is left behind?
Yeah, good afternoon, Kelly, here from Fort Myers. And you see this incredible destruction behind me of these boats tossed around like Tinker Toys. They are snapped. They are on top of each other. Some are upside down out in the bay here. And you see this is a concrete slab, which is a pier, and they were moved around like dominoes. That is from a gentleman who lives up in a high-rise who watched this happen last night. Total destruction. Now, let me tell you something, guys. We just made a trip down to the shore. We tried to get onto Fort Myers Beach, which is where we started our day covering the hurricane yesterday, and we left because of the storm surge. And the thing is, we drove the 10, 12 miles right to the edge where you go over the bridge. It is all stopped up with the sheriff's department and officials. They won't let anyone over. There's no cell service at all, and they are doing search and rescues there down in that region. In fact, over 500 rescues in 2 surrounding counties here today, according to officials. But I have to tell you this also, the drive down, not only is there no cell phone service, but what we saw was continuous neighborhood after neighborhood with down trees, down power lines, roofs that were ripped off, and people trying to get all the debris out of the road. We also went through pockets, I would say at least 3/4 of a mile, where you had to drive through standing water that was already there, and dozens of vehicles in lines driving through probably about a foot of water as they made their way through this murky residuals from the surge. You get to the other edge and you see huge boats and vessels turned over, just like here in Fort Myers on the sides of the roads. A massive warehouse where the roof was ripped off right at the edge of the inlet there at Fort Myers Beach. So I have to tell you, that in itself tells me that what is going on the shorelines is probably images that none of us will comprehend when we get down there and see them. I just certainly hope that these rescues that the officials are out there doing are successful, and that they get people out of harm's way at this point, because even though the storm is gone here, the aftermath is so intense with power outages, no water. There is no place for anyone to stay if they didn't evacuate to a hotel. All the hotels are full, even though there's nothing to offer within those except for a bed. And so here we are, less than 24 hours, or actually, the watch is in the vehicle, about 24 hours, almost that, and since landfall, where it came in 20 miles from here, just on the shore, just to the northwest. Just tremendous scenes here, and prayers with all the first responders out there trying to save people's lives, and for those that are stuck. And if anybody's watching this and you're preparing for Hurricane Ian up to the north of us in Georgia, South Carolina, please listen and take heed. Listen to what everyone is telling you. This is what can occur. Certainly, this damage is remarkable and is going to take so much time and effort to get it cleaned up and assessed. Kelly?
Hey, Robert, it's Ian now. You showed us yesterday some of the worst of the surge, some of the wind that was being produced by then major Hurricane Ian. What was it like as you woke up this morning? You had to have a feeling experiencing the fury of this storm system moving through the afternoon yesterday. You mentioned we're about 15 minutes out. It'll be 24 hours officially since landfall happened yesterday. What was it like seeing now the devastation?
Yeah, I will say this, Ian. Last night, when we got to, our hotel, which had nothing, no power, no running water, anything, I sat in the room with the flashlight. The cell phone service was in and out. And by the way, the wind gusts were just tremendous last night still, and the pouring rain on the outside. And I was trying to go through and see if there was any reports of excessive damage in the area. They were really minimal stuff because, everyone was out of pocket. There was no cell phone service, and the fury was still happening. And this morning, when I left roughly 4 a.m. in the dark of the night, my photographer Rick and I trying to weave our way through the streets, Ian, and seeing even more damage than what we saw when we exited the storm surge in downtown Fort Myers. I mean, there were trees completely collapsed this morning in front of roads, power lines down to the point where even to get around, you had to back up and maneuver or perhaps go to the side on the sidewalk. Just tremendous amount of debris all over the place, and even downtown Fort Myers, we could start to see the unraveling of rooftops when we left last night, and sure enough, when we got there this morning, there they were, strewn all over the road. So yesterday was just about as intense as it can get, and so prolonged. Hurricane Ian is just an unbelievably complex system, and I just, not many times I can say I've been afraid, and I felt it yesterday, that's for sure, Ian.
Robert Ray, thank you.
Yeah, just an awful scene there. We've seen the devastation there in Southwest Florida. Thank you very much, Fox Weather's Robert Ray. Let's go now to former FEMA official Thomas Panuzio. He joins us now to talk about the next steps as folks are left to deal with this immense amount of damage. Thomas, thanks for joining us here on Fox Weather.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Can you talk to us about the damage that's been seen so far? I know it's an early estimate, but do you have an early estimate of maybe the extent of the cost of the damages?
Sure. This is a very unique situation because unlike Hurricane Andrew, when I was on the ground there in 1992, 30 years ago, the surge of assets were not completely hindered because you didn't have the storm surge and the water damage. Essentially, it was a windstorm. Here you kind of have a trifecta of storm surge, rain, and damage, and severe wind. So it creates a very unique challenge to respond and recover for FEMA and the team. And it's more than likely that this will be the costliest disaster in Florida history. Our team has put it right around $135 billion. Because when you look at the damage that's in Southwest Florida, from essentially Collier County up through Lee County, and you look at the damage that's happening now in Orlando, Jacksonville, and potentially South Carolina and Georgia, it is an extremely expensive storm and is extremely damaging, and it will take years to recover.
That's just an astronomical number. You're talking about $135 billion. Yes, that's an estimate. The point is, it's a giant number, but in the real world, these are people's homes, these are people's businesses. This is a massive disruption, a destruction of these lives and the economy in Southwest Florida. So what about for a timeline with a devastation like this moving forward? What would you expect for an area like this to be able to bounce back?
Well, I think I know Marco Island very well. My family used to live there. I think if you look at Marco Island, Collier County, they're going to rebuild because they have, the ability to do that. They're going to get a lot of money from the federal government. They're going to get a surge of assets. I think you have to look at this in three phases. Number one, response and recovery in terms of search and rescue. That's going to take place over the next 3 to 5 days to get the critical infrastructure up and running. Depending on how much damage there is, you're probably looking at 2 to 3 months. And then after that, the building, once the debris is removed, can start. And I would imagine it will start within the next 120 days. It is really important for people to see that their lives are back together that have been displaced from their homes due to this storm. It is incredibly important from a psychological standpoint and an economical standpoint. So I would imagine that as soon as they can, the governor, who's managing this disaster very, very well, is going to want that rebuilding to start, and the communities will rebuild, and together Florida will become one again. Right now, it's very difficult to look at this because essentially it looks like you have, like we had in Andrew, a 30-mile wide tornado, and but it will build back. It will be better, just like it was in Miami-Dade County. It's just going to take a little while.
Many folks lost their homes with Ian. Is this expected to cause some sort of housing crisis, especially considering the market before Ian?
Well, I think it will, because essentially you have about 12 to 14% of the total mobile homes in all of Florida that is in Collier County, Lee County, and others. Right there, that's about 100,000 potential homes, mobile homes damaged or destroyed. In Andrew, about 97% were destroyed. It's probably going to be right around that figure. And then, of course, you're going to have people who can't access their homes like you have in Sanibel, because you simply don't have the streets and the infrastructure to allow them back. So they are going to be displaced. And of course, you know, depending on what levels of insurance you have, it's going to be a little while. I think you're probably going to have a significant amount of temporary housing, probably, you know, into 2023. But again, as long as